In optical fiber communication system, there are some losses in optical fiber, mainly absorption loss, scattering loss, and bending loss. Now, we explain what is absorption loss. Yeah, what do you understand by attenuation? Attenuation is the loss of optical fiber. If the input power is Pi and output power of the signal is Po, then attenuation is equal to 10 by L log base 10 Pi by P0, where L is the length of the fiber. The unit of the attenuation is decibel per kilometer. Absorption loss is a major cause of signal loss as optical fiber, and it is defined as the portion of attenuation resulting from the conversion of optical power into another energy form, such as heat. Absorption in optical fiber is explained by the three factors: imperfection in atomic structure of the fiber, intrinsic absorption, and extrinsic absorption. What do you understand by intrinsic absorption? Intrinsic absorption is caused by basic fiber material property. If an optical fiber were absolutely pure with no imperfection or impurities, then all absorption would be intrinsic. In extrinsic absorption, it is caused by electronic transition of metal impurity ions such as iron, chromium, nickel, OH ion contents are there present. We find extrinsic absorption. In this graph, we plot loss versus wavelength. In x-axis, we take loss decibel per kilometer. In y-axis, we take wavelength micrometer. In this figure or in this graph, we find some small peaks. In the first curve, we find some small peaks are there. Two main peaks are there. One main peak is nearly equal to 1.42 micrometer wavelength. At this point, the absorption peak is maximum. The loss is maximum at that particular wavelength. At this wavelength, the loss is comparatively small, and at these points, we find very low peaks are there. Now, we introduce a scattering loss. A scattering loss is caused by the interaction of light with density fluctuation within the fiber. Density changes are produced when optical fiber are manufactured. During manufacturing, regions of higher and lower molecular density areas relative to the average density of the fiber are created. When light traveling through the fiber interacts with the density areas as shown in the light, is then partially scattered in all directions. In this figure, we see that when the ray of light interact with higher density region, there are some scattering there. These scattering are known as the Rayleigh scattering. The scattering coefficient alpha is proportional to lambda to the power 4. and is directly proportional to Boltzmann constant, temperature, and isothermal compressibility of the material beta T. Now we discuss about bending laws. Bending laws are the two types: macroscopic laws and microscopic laws. Macroscopic bending laws is that loss is when the fiber is bent slightly. As the radius of curvature decreases, the loss increases exponentially until at a certain critical radius of curvature, losses become observable. If the bend radius is made a bit smaller once this threshold point has been reached, the losses suddenly become extremely large. In this figure, figure A, here an optical fiber have is slightly bent. In figure B, the optical fiber is bent more than in comparison to the figure first. The amount of optical radiation from the bent fiber depends upon a critical distance xc and radius of curvature r. Since higher order mode are bound less tightly than lower order mode, the higher order mode will radiate out first. Thus, the total number of mode will supported by a curved fiber is less than in a straight fiber. In this figure, this represents the lower order mode. Beyond xc, the energy radiate below point xc, the energy is confined within the core. These are the core region. Beyond this, these are the cladding region, and the shaded portion represent the power lost through radiation. This represent the field distribution of this. Here r is the radius of curvature of the bent fiber. There are some micro bendings in the fiber. Micro bending loss, when repetitively small scale fluctuation in the radius of curvature of the fiber axis, they are caused either by non-uniformities in the manufacturing of the fiber or by non-uniform lateral pressure created during the cabling of the fiber. An increase in attenuation results from microbending because the fiber curvature causes repetitive coupling of energy between the guided mode and the leaky or non-guided mode of the fiber. In this figure, in first figure, there are some microbends are created in the fiber core and cladding. Here, these are the leaky mode. The energy is radiated from the fiber. But in the second figure, the modes, the energy is confined within the core. within the core of the fiber. These are the guided mode. These are the unguided mode. Now the question arises, how we minimize microbending? Minimizing microbending losses is by extruding a compressible jacket over the fiber. When external forces are applied, the jacket will be deformed, but the fiber will tend to stay relatively straight. In the second figure, here, the central portion represents the optical fiber and the outer portion represents the compressible jacket. When an external forces are applied on this jacket, the jacket bears the total external pressure. It becomes bent, but the bending in the optical fiber is slight. There are a slight bending in optical fiber, means the compressible jacket protect the optical fiber to bending. Now, we explain the total picture of the communication from transmitter to receiver. Here, we select an electrical input signal. These signals are sent through the optical fiber and finally received by the receiver. But in between the transmitter and receiver, there are some important tools are there. In the transmitter, first the drive circuit, the light source. The light sources give the carrier wave. Normally, we select as a light source LED or laser diode. Then, for joining two optical fiber, we select optical splice, and when the power of the signal is decreases, then we take a regenerator portion. In the regenerator, there are a optical receiver, there are some electronic devices, there are optical transmitters are there. After regenerator, we select optical amplifier. Optical amplifier amplify the signal in optical form, and then these amplified signal are received by the receiver. In the receiver section, there are some important tools: photodetector, amplifier, and signal restorer. And finally, we find electrical signal output. In the transmission portion, we explain what is transmitter. The transmitter is first convert the input voltage to current value, which is used to drive the light source. The light source is normally an infrared LED or laser device, which is driven by the current value from V to I converter. It emits light, which is proportional to the drive current. Thus, light which is proportional to the input voltage value is generated and given as input to fiber. A source of fiber interface is used for coupling the light source to the fiber optic cable. the light emitted from the source is inserted into the fiber such that maximum light emitted from it is coupled to the fiber. There are some light sources here: light emitting diode, semiconductor laser diode, DFB, DBR, and there are so many diodes used as a optical source. When a PN diode is connected in the forward bias, properly forward bias, there are a movement of holes and electrons from different regions. Electrons go towards P, holes go towards N. So when the diode is in the case of forward bias, the light emitted, these lights are selected for the carrier wave. There are some different sources are there, just like a laser diode, which is made by P-type aluminum gallium arsenic, N-type aluminum gallium arsenic, and in between P and N region there are a intrinsic region gallium arsenic are there. So such type of laser diode is known as heterostructure lasers. Heterostructure lasers invented in 1962. In the basic configuration of a double heterostructure, a suitable semiconductor is sandwiched between two layers of the higher band gap material. The gallium arsenic is about 1.42 electron volt, the band gap energy of this. P-type aluminum gallium arsenide and N-type aluminum gallium arsenide have a higher band gap than 1.42 electron volt. The potential barrier at the two heterojunctions restrict the flow of electron from N aluminum gallium arsenic to P aluminum gallium arsenic and the holes from P to N layers. This results in a large concentration of accumulated carriers in the thin gallium arsenide layer and leads to a large number of carriers, recombination and photon emission. The energy of the emitted photon will be around the band gap energy of the gallium arsenide, and therefore these photons will not be absorbed by aluminum gallium arsenide layers which have a higher band gap energy.